it's Natalia, and today I have another pattern and tutorial for you. They've been so highly requested since I put out a few at the beginning of the year, and I just got really busy with other things and I wasn't able to produce anymore, but it's something I really want to start focusing on a little bit more. So today we're doing a basic bodysuit pattern because I've done so many over the past year. If you've seen my content, you know that I've done a lot of Eras Tour outfits the past year, and a lot of them are bodysuits. So I feel like I've gotten to a point where I've perfected it, / I just feel confident in making them. So I made a pattern that you guys can purchase and then obviously follow this tutorial with. It's a very basic bodysuit pattern, like a high neck, nothing crazy moment, and that way you can kind of alter it as well to any different type of styles and shapes, but it's just a pretty basic shape at first. I do plan on making a few other tutorials with how you can stylize this pattern and use it to make different things, but for today, we're just gonna stick to how to make the basic pattern. Because this one is a high neck in front and back, it will be using a zipper, but it is still a stretch bodysuit pattern. So you will need to use some sort of fabric that has stretch to it, preferably more stretch than less, but you can kind of work around it. Today, I'm just gonna be using this plain like cotton jersey. It is nothing crazy. It does stretch. It's not like a super crazy stretch. I do recommend using something like with a bit of weight to it if you really want a snatched look, because like the thicker the fabric is, the more snatched it'll make you feel, and the thinner it is, like the less snatching effect you get with it. So it kind of just depends on what you're going for, but at the end of the day you just need something that's stretchy. So that being said, you really truly only need your fabric, a zipper. I always like to use an invisible zipper because I think they look cleaner, and if you have a serger, this will make your life a million times easier because I like to serge all my seams with stretch fabric. If you don't have a serger, you can just use a zigzag stitch on a regular machine, and be sure to use a jersey needle or a knit needle so that the stitch doesn't come loose. That being said, let's get into it.
So obviously we're going to start off by cutting out all of our pieces. You're going to need 2 of each piece. So 2 of the front, cut on fold, and then 4 of the back piece, not on fold, because you will be putting a zipper in the center back. So cut that out in all of your fabric and get that ready to go. You should have 6 pieces that look like this, 2 fronts and 4 backs. We're going to start off by connecting the necklines of the front shell and the front lining, as well as the back shell and the back lining on both sides. I use my serger for this because I find it so much easier if you have one, but again, you can use a regular machine. But just go ahead and sew down all of the necklines and get those ready. Once you have the necklines ready, you can open them up and you'll have the shoulder seams. This is where we're going to attach the fronts to the back. So open up the shoulder seams from the front and the back and connect it by putting together the seams and then pinning the rest of it. Do that on both sides and then get that serged up or sewn, whichever you are using. Now it should look like this, and we're gonna go ahead and put together the side seams. So we're gonna put together the side seams of the front to the backs for the lining and the outer shells. So go ahead and do that for each layer. It looks a little bit wonky, but you'll get the point once you start doing it. Again, make sure that you are putting things right sides together so that all the seams end up on the inside and we get a very clean finish. Now go ahead and get that serged and or sewn depending on what you're using. Now we're gonna go ahead and move on to the armholes. So I'm putting my hands through both of the layers. So I'm in between both layers and I'm grabbing on to the side seam of the outer shell and then holding it to the side seam of the inner lining. Looks a little bit confusing, but once you have that pinched together, then you're gonna wanna turn it inside out and go ahead and pin all around. You won't be able to fully pin it all around because you have to do a bit of maneuvering to get through the entire like circle basically, because the shoulder seam's already sewn in there, but you just keep sewing at it and kind of move the fabric as you go, and eventually you'll be able to meet your starting point at the very end to complete the full arm. So now when you turn it inside out, you have your perfect seam right there. Next, we're gonna move on to the leg hole seam. So we're gonna do the same kind of thing where from the outside, we're gonna pinch together the side seam for both the outer shell and the lining, and then we're gonna flip it inside out and then find our seam, pin it all together for both sides, and we're going to go ahead and get that serged and or sewn, depending on what you're using. Now it's time to put in our zipper. I like to use an invisible zipper because I think they look cleaner. So I'm gonna go ahead and just put that in. Remember that your seam allowance is 1/2 inch on the center back. So obviously for this, you're gonna use a sewing machine regardless of if you have a serger or not. So just make sure to line it up with the 1/2 inch mark and get that sewn in there. Nothing too crazy. You can use whatever kind of zipper, but again, I prefer invisible. I think it looks cleaner. And this is what it should look like when it's done. Now we have to finish the rest of the seam. So I'm just going to hold it in place for the outer shell and then flip it inside out so I can find the seam, and we're gonna just sew as close to the zipper as we possibly can. Again, this is a 1/2 inch seam allowance, so make sure to follow that when you are sewing this part up as well. And just get as close to the zipper as you can so that there's not a gaping hole. Now we have the lining to finish up. So we're gonna do the same exact thing and just sew it all the way up to where the zipper is roughly. So I'm going to put together the seams and then turn it kind of inside out so I can finish it up. And once that's pinned, go ahead and sew that up. Again, this is 1/2 inch seam allowance, so make sure to do that when you're on your machine. Now our bodysuit is almost done. We're gonna put together the crotch seam now. So what I like to do is put together the seams for the front to the back on both sides, but focusing on the outer shell part first. So that is what we're gonna be sewing up with our machine. Try to get a little bit of fabric in before each seam and after each seam so that when you flip it inside out, it's a little bit more clean. You're gonna have a hole anyway, as you'll see right here, like it'll look clean on the outside, but then the inside will have a little bit of a hole that we're gonna have to fix up. You can just machine sew this because honestly, like nobody sees this part at all, but I like to just hand stitch it so it's a little bit cleaner and a little more invisible. But again, you could easily sew this on your machine. It's not that big of a deal. But we're just gonna close it up real quick to make sure we have a clean finish. Last thing we need to do is finish up our lining so that everything is fully finished. So what I like to do is, again, hand sew it because I think it looks nicer. So I tuck in about 1/2 inch seam allowance and pin it to the zipper. And I also obviously make sure the top of the zipper is also nice and clean. And once you have that all pinned up, you can just go ahead and hand sew it. I like to do like a pretty simple slip stitch, nothing too crazy because it's on the inside, so it's not like anybody's gonna see it. You can kind of do whatever stitch you want because again, it's not gonna show on the outside. But this is the way that I like to keep it looking really clean and really professional, especially when I do custom orders. Once you're done with this, all you have to do is iron out all of your seams, make sure everything is pressed nicely, and now you are officially done and ready to wear your bodysuit. That is it for today's tutorial. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you do remake this, let me know. Send me a DM on Instagram, comment it down below. I would love to hear your thoughts, and I would love to see if you stylize it in any sort of way. So feel free to tag me because I'd love to see it. And let me know what other patterns you would like to see. I'm hoping to make a few more within the next few months, so let me know and hopefully I will get to them. And of course, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!